welcome to Red Ice Creations Radio. My name is Henrik and this is Internet Talk Radio from the west coast of Sweden. Thank you for tuning in. Nice to have you along. On Thursdays and Sundays we are here highlighting research and information for your consideration. And we do not tell you what to think or what you should believe. We try to present the information in the best way we can and help to highlight the research of authors, filmmakers and researchers and bring their information to your attention. We do not claim that we know or are presenting the truth about everything, but we are searching for truth and we are trying to find out what has been going on in the past, what is going on now and what we might expect in the future. And we think that you should make up your own mind about the subjects that we cover and continue the search for yourself if you find it interesting. So dare to explore the world and consequently yourself. Our website is redicecreations.com. Stop by for frequently updated news, links, resources, videos. We have our member section up there, the forums and much more. And today on the program we have Neil Kramer back with us. You might remember our first show that we did with Neil back in December last year. And Neil is behind the website /blog The Cleaver. He writes on many important subjects relating to awakening consciousness, also manipulation and how to kind of break free from the hive mentality and how to find yourself in all of this. Very important and interesting material. And we have quite a few different things that we're going to talk about today. The gates of awakening, increasing polarity of consciousness, LRP, flash analysis. I have no idea what that is. That's going to be very interesting talking more about that. Imagination and field uplink and also finding oneself or locating oneself in all of this. Very good stuff indeed, and it's going to be very interesting diving into this with Neil here today. And you can, of course, find more of Neil's writing at thecleaver.blogspot.com. That's thecleaver.blogspot.com. Many excellent articles up there for you to dive into. So with that, it's been a while, but it's very nice to have you back on the program, Neil. Welcome.
Hello, Henrik. It's great to be back here.
So, I mean, how have you been? You continue to be, creative. You've been writing. You've been producing. Is everything good over there in the UK?
Yeah, it's excellent. Thank you. I think it's one of those times where everything seems to be kind of accelerating, and time just really seems to be just disappearing into a black hole, really. So I'm just trying to grab as much as I can of the time that is available for myself and keep studying, keep exploring, experiencing. And as I was just kind of looking over your website earlier today, and one of your taglines is like "Be here now," and yes. I think that's extremely important thing to do straight away if you can, to avoid disappearing into someone else's mind.
Very good point. Very important. And I mean, if we think about time as such, or time disappearing, or going faster and faster in a way, do you think that that's related to our consciousness, or is this actually an external thing, that time is actually speeding up in some way?
I think very much time is a construct which helps us navigate around the world, and if a dimensional shift comes about, which it certainly looks like it will do, I think time is the first thing that's going to be jettisoned and is the first thing that's going to be dropped and left behind entirely. So it's a difficult question, and perhaps it's both. Consciousness certainly external. It certainly seems to be that too. From my perspective, I've always quite admired the Mayan map, which is their calendar really charting the development of consciousness in ever accelerating cycles. And according to that, we're in the final cycle right at the top of the pyramid, which is a cycle of only a few years, really, with, of course, the zenith in 2012, which, as I've said to numerous people who have discussed this with, I don't think 2012 is what I call like a light switch moment where something suddenly happens and everything changes in an extraordinary way. I think it's purely the peak of a graph, the top point of a graph where things are at their height of complexity and possible singularity. So Yes and yes is the short answer.
Very good. Yeah, I agree with you there, and I think again it's important to emphasize that with 2012. As you said, it has been said before, but it needs to be said again that to focus on that as a point of change can be very diluting, so to speak, as well. People are focusing on that and actually might not incorporate any change in their own lives because they're focusing on that as a point of reference. So, oh no, just wait until that point and things will be better or worse or whatever it is that you're waiting for. But I think it's important to begin straight away. Why wait, right?
Yes, it's a good point. It's really 2012 is in danger of becoming a sort of contemporary New Age redeemer victim religion where everybody sits on the backside waiting for the savior moment, whether it's in the shape of a person or an entity or an extraterrestrial or an event or whatever. So I'm certainly not putting money on anything, and I'm certainly not waiting for anything. I'm just, carrying on as fast as I can and as purposefully and determined as I can. So 2012 is something to keep an eye on and study and be observant and aware of, but not a focal point in terms of one's own activities.
Yes. We had a few points here that we want to go through today, a few chapters, if you will. And the first one is the gates of awakening. And you wrote to me the natural process of how consciousness is engaged, challenged, and raised. Tell us a little bit about that, Neil.
Yeah, the gates of awakening is my shorthand, really, my little technique for analysing the process that seems to be what I would consider a very natural process, whereby humans come into the world, they engage with certain activities, they unveil certain truths and untruths, and they expand their consciousness and they begin to integrate these new powers into their life. And those kind of sections can be brought down into discrete individual units. So what I've observed is that there is a certain succession of energies from one movement to another. So I've described it elsewhere as a kind of transcendental energy model, but really just easier English language is gates of awakening. So in my model, the first thing that happens when, you say to a lot of your guests, for example, and on other shows and TV shows and so on, tell us your story. Tell us how you got into this and how your consciousness moved and what opened your eyes and what was the event that happened to you. In my model, that is what I would call the engagement stage. So this is really the thing, that a lot of people approach typically in the first third of the life, although there are exceptions and some people do this later on, where you'll find something that engages your consciousness and your attention. So it could be something like ancient civilizations and Egyptians, early Christianity, Mayans, Toltecs, whatever, or Atlanteans, Lemurians, etc. And for other people, they say, "Oh no, I don't want to do that. I'm not much of a historian. I'm more interested in conspiracy and ghosts and things like that." And for other people who are much more, shall we say, left brain minded, they may say, well, for me, the thing that engages me is physics, botany or cosmology or quantum theory. So the engagement process is different for everybody, but it's a key stage that says, okay, the universe is pretty big and mysterious and interesting, and your way into it is going to be through a subject that engages your attention, that expands your consciousness and gives you energy, basically. So that engagement process typically lasts, a number of years. And for me, I was quite interested in philosophy, for example. So I kind of studied, the ancient philosophers like Pythagoras and Socrates and Plato and so on, and then kind of skipped whole eras of medieval and Renaissance and Enlightenment and went to the 19th century and 20th century philosophers. So for me, I was interested in other people who sat back and thought, this isn't surely the way things are. This isn't surely the world as it has been taught to us in schools. There seems to be something much more fundamental, something so huge we can't actually see it. And, these guys approach that as a philosophical problem, which is quite interesting, which is a good way of doing it. What then tends to happen is the second gate, if you like, and there are analogues for this in Zen Buddhism and also in Toltec shamanism, their own ways of measuring this progress of consciousness. But for mine, I've termed it the gates of awakening just for my own use. The second stage is what I call the unveiling stage. And there are two aspects to this. There is the shadow and the dark side, and there is the light side and the energy side. So a dark unveiling, for example, would be something like the study of the secret societies and, Illuminist groups, Masons, Rosicrucians, Knights of Malta, and then the more kind of geopolitical reflections of that, like the Bilderbergers, Council on Foreign Relations, Tavistock, etc. Many of which, of course, stem from these ancient mystery cults and this extreme stratification of knowledge and technology, which they keep to themselves and deny to everybody else. And one interesting thing that characterizes this unveiling stage is that many people, particularly those who focus on the dark stuff, we'll come to the light unveilings in a minute, but the dark unveilings, it's very easy to get stuck at that stage, and it's very easy to find yourself kind of mired in all the information and disinformation and infighting and intrigues and so on and so forth. Yes. And I'm sorely tempted to give examples, but I'll try and be professional and not do that.
Right. Yes.
But I'm sure we can use our imaginations of people who you can imagine have found themselves in stasis, hibernating at that stage. So it is easy to do, and I'm sure that the kind of cognitive dissonance that one finds in one's own life when you arrive at that place is very uncomfortable.
Yes.
And in psychological terms, one way of dealing with cognitive dissonance is distraction. So it is easy to distract yourself with, endlessly researching all the different twists and turns of the conspiracy. So in this process, it's important to switch from the dark to the light unveilings. Examples of that are things like the core understanding, the core comprehension that the three-dimensional world in front of us is not actually there as such. It's a brain construct, it's a mind construct, and it's there for navigational purposes only. And in and of itself, it does not exist. It is Maya, it is illusory in its very heart. That is a very basic light unveiling, but certainly one that's driven me down this road pretty hard. Mm-hmm. And as you approach that information, you can do it from a mystical point of view through religious and semi-religious and ancient mystery cults and, more enlightened kind of ways of thought. Or you can do it through science, and you can look at string theory. You can look at what people are doing at CERN with the Large Hadron Collider and so on.
Yes.
The basic message, though, and a lot of people are focusing on this, particularly people like Greg Braden, who I know you've had on very recently. He's saying consciousness, yes, consciousness creates reality. It is the fabric of reality. It's to some extent what I've termed the programming language of reality. And science and mysticism seem to be slowly and gingerly, approaching each other and shaking hands on this and saying, yeah, we think we can agree on some consensus a little bit here, whereas science studies the phenomenology of that. Religion studies the moral and personal implications of that.
Yes.
So those are the two sides of the unveiling stage. The third stage, the third gate, is what I call expansion, and this is the interesting bit, really. You can't go to expansion properly unless you have engaged yourself with information